So this episode is going to be about AI and kind of certain AI applications that I have questions about. So the first question is going to be about, how dangerous could AI be as a weapon, and why haven't we seen weaponized AI?
We'll never know. I love it. So we're talking about kind of AI dangers. Weaponizing AI is the episode. Cool. So I believe AI is on par with kind of nuclear weapons. And there was a piece recently, there was a paper published by ex-OpenAI researchers. It's 2027 AI. And as part of that, they kind of draw a future scenario up to 2027. And as part of that, they frame the AI arms race between China and the US. And essentially, the first nation to get to AGI, or artificial general intelligence, is going to be poised to dominate all other nations. So, if anything, this is, nuclear bomb grade opportunity and risk. And to answer your question, I think AI for evil is probably here. We just don't know about it. There's lots of organizations who are or teams who are like hacking teams. I believe they're already deploying AI, but I believe we haven't seen the worst yet. For example, we look at Cursor, right, or these kind of AI coding tools. All of these AI coding tools have been trained on good code. But I'm willing to bet you someone else out there is actually now sitting down and training AI on every malware that's been ever written. And that is the risk, that's the danger, is, if we have AI coding for good, just like you have that, you have AI coding for evil, right? And what that looks like is an AI agents that are in real time inspecting their targets for vulnerabilities and then writing code to exploit those vulnerabilities. That's how I think it's going to play out in the next few months. And then we'll see on the other side, on the defense side. So there's the offense side and there's the defense side. And we're likely to see other advanced AI defense systems that are plugging vulnerabilities, mitigating attacks, or creating what's called honeypots for essentially tricking attacking AI to think there is a target there. So that's how I think it's going to play out. I think it's going to be a tough battle. We're already struggling to, on the cybersecurity front. We don't have enough specialists. Attacks are just ramping up, and it's going to be a very interesting next 12, 24 months.
Do you think then, reasonably speaking, we can kind of assume that there is programs from governments to create weaponized AI somewhere?
Absolutely, beyond reasonable doubt. And I think you don't want to discount there's other types of attacks. I was thinking about your question more. There are attacks today that are being executed by hackers leveraging AI. An example of that is cloning someone's voice, someone's likeness on video, and then, making a fake call about, I remember there was one in the news about, somebody faking the voice of somebody's daughter and saying, your daughter's kidnapped, you better pay me a ransom. So I think this is already happening now. And it's not just the kind of, malware or code being written, but there's a lot of the hacking or exploitation that happens that is more like social engineering in nature. It's you tricking someone into doing what you want.
Yeah, I remember people were doing Joe Rogan. They're doing fake Joe Rogan promos for products, saying like, "Oh, I really endorse this product."
But that is not really. This is kind of AI for evil, but not necessarily kind of security, and not. It wouldn't fall under social engineering. It's more, fake identity. But social engineering is more like Benny. Somebody clones Shukri's voice and then calls Benny and says, "Hey Benny, I need you to post this podcast." Right? Sends you a malicious thing. That's the kind of social engineering we're talking about. And of course, it happens on the consumer side, but this is more dangerous when it's kind of done to organizations.
or to the general population. So you could have like a bunch of AI agents that are trying to sway public opinion, for example, on a certain topic that exists, right? Is where when you're kind of alluding to.
AI fake content. I mean, yeah, for sure.
Though, if you wanted to build an AI virus, what's stopping you from doing that? Like, why haven't we seen more AI viruses? Oh, like, cruising around the internet, right?
Mm, I don't know whether we've seen them or not. I think it's maybe they're not widespread, but it doesn't have to be widespread to be dangerous. And we can go back to an example. There was a worm that was designed only for one purpose, to infiltrate to one of Iran's nuclear facilities and basically ruin the reactors. So that's an example that is extremely, extremely dangerous. Doesn't have to be publicly widespread. So, but I think we're gonna see widespread kind of consumer-facing viruses. But the question is always, what's the payoff, right? Because at the end of the day, if somebody's gonna go through the trouble to write the virus, whether AI leveraged or not, there needs to be an incentive at the end of that. So, I think mass viruses, like what's the upside? Versus very, very targeted, that's where there's usually an upside. Either government sanctioned work or kind of more of kind of for-profit work on kind of black hacker side.
Yeah, it's true. There has to be a thesis to the AI. Like there has to be a reason why an AI would do something bad. Yeah.
Or why would somebody prompt the AI to go and produce a certain type of malware? Yeah. Like what's the value of the target? And one thing I like to say, security is an illusion. It's all a function of what is the payoff, right? Like if you think about someone who's maybe a head of a nation state or someone in a government, the motivation to hack that person is extremely high because now we can, get secrets, get dirt, all of that. But for an average Joe on the internet, what's the payoff? Like what's the upside? So the effort is not worth it, and that's usually what kind of how hackers think is like, what is the upside once I kind of penetrate this target? What am I going to get at the end of that? And that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to get consumer-facing ones that like ransomware type that hey, enter your credit card or whatever's on your machine gets published or whatever's in your machine gets destroyed. I think that, but that kind of produces difficulty for the hackers to get paid.
With all of this AI, then, like we've talked about, okay, we have AI that could be targeting people, AI that could be targeting governments and organizations, but there has to be a thesis for this potential AI virus. What scares you the most? What for you is concerning about AI in this field?
Well, AGI, artificial general intelligence, is concerning because once you create an entity that exceeds you in intelligence, you can no longer predict what it's going to do. And then you can have the best intention at heart, but anyone who's prompted, a ChatGPT will know that you can prompt it one way and it's not going to do the thing you want, right? So what's preventing AGI from, making a logical conclusion, but that conclusion is not in our favor, and then essentially kind of kill all humanity or decide to shut down, some facility. Those are the risks. I think I'm hopeful after all. I don't want to create, negative sentiment. There's enough of that to go around. I'm hopeful, and I'm actually more excited about AI than I'm scared. I think there will be challenges, but if anything human nature taught me is that we thrive on those challenges and we rise to the occasion. So maybe that's a test for humanity to pass.
Well, are you an AI optimist, or are you in the camp that you do think AI needs to be regulated? I don't think I've ever actually heard you talk about this, because there was a big debate when ChatGPT started gaining a lot of popularity. There were some people who were saying, okay, we got all in AI, we got to push, and there were other people in the community who were saying we need to regulate AI. We got to stop this thing.
I'm not a pessimist I'm not a pessimist or an optimist. I'm more of a realist. So I large companies that have like massive computing power, I believe, should be regulated to some extent, because again, if we go back to the parallel we drew to kind of nuclear weapon, anyone who's developing a nuclear weapon, I mean, somebody has to watch over that, right, to make sure that things don't go wrong. I think I'm in favor of some regulation, but it's again, it doesn't have to go to the extremes, right? Like I think over-regulation kills innovation, slows things down tremendously, and that's what we don't want. We want things are going to progress. Regulation will slow it down. That's the risk, and I think the U.S. understands this well, not to kind of dampen, their own velocity, because, if in a nation versus nation scenario, the US right now has the lead by about 6 months. And so if I were them, I wouldn't do anything to lose that.
So with ChatGPT, which is kind of like, as far as like a large language model is concerned right now, as we're filming this, it's kind of the large language model. It has a lot of restrictions on it. Like there's a lot of things you couldn't use it for.
Yes.
What's your kind of thoughts on those restrictions, and what would happen if we took those restrictions off ChatGPT? Do you think these restrictions are limiting AI? Shouldn't it be a ChatGPT that can do anything you want it to do without barriers?
There are models like that. In fact, I'm using one of those. Ethics-free models, modded models. Those exist.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, those exist. I run one.
Isn't it GPT though that's cracked? Or is something else?
No. It's there is a lot of the Llama, which is the Facebook models. Llama, there's a lot of those. I haven't seen on the Chinese model. Actually, even the Chinese model, for example. In fact, here's an interesting one for you. So DeepSeek, their open weight model, their open source model. If you prompted anything around Chinese government, censored, shut it down. But then Perplexity's team took that and modded it to basically allow it to talk about China in a normal way. So you can see that it's the same model. There's a Chinese censored version, and there is a US version of that, and that's there outside and live now. And you can do that. You have to have the model though.
Where ChatGPT wants to torrent a file, I said, can you find me this file so I can torrent it? And it was like, no. It was like, I can't do that. No.
You can work around that. So keep in mind there is prompt engine, just like there is hackers that can use good code to do bad things. You can prompt around that. For example, I'm willing to bet you that I can get it to give you the torrent, but
in Minecraft, you have to frame this.
No, it doesn't. But keep in mind, OpenAI's model specifically is not open source. You cannot really change it in that way. And I think it's for that purpose. And the biggest thing China would be trying to do is steal the ways of the model. Because then essentially they're able to take that model, tweak it to their purpose, and run with it.
If Llama's practical, right, and ChatGPT is not, wouldn't that make it just the better language model in theory?
Because it's what makes a good model is the amount of training that went into that. And I think the one that has had the most training is the OpenAI model. It's that makes it better or kind of worse around the reasoning. Well, there's a lot of nuance there, but it's not modding it is what makes it better or worse. Like the censorship or the safeguards, those are essentially just protection against you asking certain types of questions or implementing or allowing the model to implement certain use cases. That doesn't really kind of restrict the model in terms of kind of performance. What changes the model's performance is the amount of data it's been trained on and the size of the model are kind of the two big factors today.
Okay, got you. So in your opinion, the safeguards that exist on these AIs at this point in time, they don't really hinder your use that much, even though you choose to have a version that is correct. As you say, it's
This is like a personal thing. It's not
yeah.
like I
Okay.
wouldn't. Yeah. It's not about kind of like the work we do anywhere. We use kind of the models with the safeguards and everything. It's very very rare for someone to take kind of safeguards off a model. This is not something I would do professionally, but as someone who wants to play with different models, I'm like, okay, oh, there's models is like no ethics or no biases towards anything.
And
Like I like to get just like, hey, what does that model think versus a ChatGPT? Is something worth to look at. Yeah.
for research purposes, yeah, you can kind of see what it's like. That's a fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, and
That's a
then
fair
you
point.
evaluate, can that model, for example, write malware? The model I have
Yeah.
there can.
So what does that mean to have a ChatGPT that can write malware, or like a GPT model that can write malware? Like what are the implications of that? Isn't that dangerous?
Extremely, because you're able to write viruses that no antivirus has seen before, all the time and faster.
It's crazy to me. Like, this is kind of going back to the first question. I'm just surprised we've had, and doesn't feel him. You would assume with all of this AI innovation that there would be some insane new innovative viruses coming out. And I just feel like we haven't seen that. That's kind of like my main thesis of this episode is like, and maybe I'm ignorant, but it just seems like
Be careful what you wish for, Benny. Be careful what you wish
yeah,
for.
yeah, of course.
Because I mean, look, I think going back to the incentive conversation, like if somebody all they want is recognition, probably they'll do something like this. You have to understand the person's motivation, right? Are there people, and I think that's why the safeguards exist, right? Am I allowed, for example, to prompt them, like, do I want my kids, for example, to prompt a model about how to kill somebody? No, right? These are things that or how to cause self-harm, or like these are the use cases that you need to think about. You need to think about the entire population. Do you want to give someone instructions on how to build weapons? Well, technically, GPT has all the knowledge to do that, or most of the knowledge to do that. So then, do you want to just make this knowledge accessible to the average people? Doesn't sound like
it would be a
needs.
danger. It could be a huge danger. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Big tech is taking over AI. It seems every single day, a big American tech company launches its AI. Is there room in AI for small companies, or is it kind of over? Would you say?
I think you need to be a little bit more specific. The model game is a very expensive game for now. So for a new company to come and build a new model, you have to train it on a lot of data. Or you do what kind of the DeepSeek did, is you train the model on another model, which is effectively kind of taking short-circuiting or shortcutting all of that kind of training process. I think, building new models, unless there is innovation in unless you're technically changing like the GPT or the transformer model, or you're doing some innovation around that, which DeepSeek did to some extent, there is no reason for you to build a new model. And there's a ton of money to be made. You don't have to build an LLM. You use the LLMs that exist today to build superior products in a domain or area of expertise that you have. That's where money is made today. You want to think about it this way. What ChatGPT gives you is general purpose intelligence. And unless you basically turn that general purpose intelligence into a specific intelligence by pairing it with specific knowledge, there's no value. There's no business value being created. So what you want is general intelligence plus specific domain knowledge. You combine them together and you apply. Now you have specific intelligence for that domain. What we do is specific intelligence for healthcare. You can do specific intelligence for fintech. The argument that companies are GPT wrappers are like, Perplexity is one of those GPT wrappers. You could argue that Perplexity is just a GPT wrapper. Cursor is another GPT wrapper. By all means, but they managed to make hundreds of millions of dollars of value by being a GPT wrapper. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that.
You can use Perplexity, like you're a Perplexity advocate. Why not just use ChatGPT with certain parameters that make it like Perplexity, for example?
If you know the formula, please tell it to me. But Perplexity is optimized for the search use case, for the research use case. And GPT is starting to get good at that, like the 3.0 model, and like, you know, being able to go to the web and pull references is there. But Perplexity kind of it's just it's the trade-off in how you design it. ChatGPT can never be a Perplexity because it's just optimized for the general intelligence use case. It doesn't. However, it's possible to see OpenAI launch a specific product as the Perplexity killer. I think that is probably a more likely scenario.
Okay, fair enough. So the last kind of question, and then we'll have a last question, is what do you think is something that the general population misunderstands about AI?
That is still early. I think I see people in two camps. Either they're viewing it as, oh man, ready now to change humanity and it's ready to do everything automatically. Today, that's not the case. That's probably the biggest misconception. And you can trace that back to the media, right? AI is going to take the jobs. AI, yes, it's going to do all of these things. It's not there yet. Even like, again, the one argument that I hear constantly is, wait, AI is going to replace developers. And I'm like, absolutely. Is it there now? No, not yet.
When will it get there then? Like when would you say it's going to be kind of over? And AI just takes over everything.
2027. I at least based on that paper, that's when, you know, when AGI comes in, when and then you get like stable, reliable AI engineering agents.
And you know what? I'll read the paper, and that will be our next episode as we can discuss the paper together.
It's pretty cool. You're gonna love it.